Welcome to Fuzzybutts and Friends. Well, as much as it drives Fuzzybutts all over this world absolutely crazy, I'm Yer Big Dog, the host of Fuzzybutts and Friends, Luke Robinson, and I'm here this week again with our co-host, Ginger Morgan. She's the executive director of the Puppy Up Foundation. Ginger, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm really excited about this episode. I think a lot of people would be interested in it.
It is, Ginger. It really is an extremely important episode, and it's also a timely one because Ginger, we've done a really pretty good job at the Puppy Up Foundation funding some great comparative oncology canine cancer research. We've done some promising clinical trials. We helped some fuzzy butts. And I think we've even helped commercialize a couple of new tools in the toolbox for cancer care. But all of that is for naught, Ginger, if pet parents can't afford the cost of all the tools that we're doing a great job at innovating. Ginger, there are 6 million new cases of cancer in our canine companions every year, they're saying now. And as you know, what makes this conversation today, this episode so timely, is that we recently launched the Hudson's Hope Fund. And the Puppy Up Foundation has always been about canine cancer research, the research side of it, the tool side of it. And so now for the first time, we're adding canine cancer treatment. And so we're very excited today to talk to somebody who's been doing that for quite some time. And yet another organization here that's helping out pet parents pay the bills too. Matt Martin, he's the co-founder of CoFundMyPet. Matt, how are you, sir?
Terrific. Great to be here, and great to spend more time with Ginger. We've known each other on and off for a couple of years now, so it's great to see everyone again.
It's good to see you too.
I just found that out. I did not know that was true on today, but you guys must have some sort of secret handshake code thing going because you're both dressed in puppy up blue. So you guys must have been like coordinating behind my back because I've got the sad gray, dark, dour gray color, what I'm going with today. So, but you both look cheery, and I'm glad you guys have known each other for a while. Ginger has chatted you up big time. So the way I want to start off the show, Matt, is the most important thing is please tell our audience what is the vision of CoFundMyPet.
Yeah, very simply, our vision is to help pet parents not have to say goodbye too early because they couldn't afford that bill. That's as simple as it can get. 2/3 of pets who are euthanized are euthanized for a financial situation, and that's unfortunate. And so there's a lot of resources available through pet insurance, through grants, through other organizations, and we want to be as best as possible that final backstop when I just can't get what I need, and I'm not ready to say goodbye yet, and the animal's not ready to go yet. So we're a resource to help those who love a person's pets, family members, friends, the community. And we see so many people, willing to help, $5, $10, $15, and more here and there, just to help an animal not have to leave too soon.
That's wonderful. There's a lot to unpack there. So let's take that 2/3 number because I always do a little due diligence prior to each show, and I'm limited in my time to do extensive market research. And I was trying to figure out exactly how big this problem is, how big of a need this is, and that's probably the number I think that really hits me the most, Matt. So that's 2/3 of all pets are euthanized. Is that correct?
Yeah, two-thirds of the pets, and depending on where you look, I mean, unfortunately, there's not a great statistical, pool of those numbers kept. But from the research we've found, about 2/3 of animals who are euthanized, ultimately it's a financial decision. Obviously they're not just ordinarily euthanized just because, but they're, some sort of ailment that perhaps the family has, paid some level of treatment for, paid for some level of treatment, but at some point the cost of care outweighs the ability to help keep that pet around. And so two out of three of those euthanasias could potentially be avoided or definitely be avoided with a little little more money to help out getting there. And obviously, veterinarians aren't there to, veterinarians do it because they care about animals, but it's also a business. And so they do their best. But sometimes finances just becomes the last barrier.
No doubt, no doubt. So I just want to unpack that number a little bit. So 2/3 of all pet euthanasia. So how many pet euthanasias are in the U.S. every year? Do we know, roundabout?
I've read anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000. So it may be more, it may be less.
Okay.
It's
So
there's not a good
we're
number.
talking about basically a lot of pets in the U.S. or euthanized every year because of something, basically financial constraints, something that there could potentially be a solution for, and that's precisely what CoFundMyPet is. Now, Matt, you introduced us, Ginger and I, to your Fuzzybutts over there, Penny and Itty Bitty. Are they around to say hello to our audience that watches us on the YouTube channel?
They are. Well,
Since we are called Fuzzybutts and Friends
going on, but Penny here, she's our rescue. Her first Gotcha Day anniversary is July 5th. So her own Independence Day is coming up soon.
All right, happy Gotcha Day coming up soon, Penny. You're a gorgeous gal, you beauty. Well,
She's adorable.
She really is.
She is. Take care of her in the storm. I've got one, my 3-legged Pyrenees, Grayson. He's a rescue, was abused really big time, left outside, and storms really bother him. So she's a beauty. You also have another little one I saw a little while ago, Itty Bitty. That's the one that runs the house, is what you're saying.
She's our alpha.
See, I need a little bitty one that I could put right up here as sort of like office decor or studio decor, because we do need to have more Fuzzybutts actually on Fuzzybutts on Friends. But I wanted to stop a serious conversation and take the time out to introduce your Fuzzybutts, because that's why you do what you do, right, Matt? Correct?
Right. Absolutely. We started. My co-founder Burke Williams and I started CoFund Health. Our background was in helping people afford medication, and so once we left that business, we decided that we wanted to help people afford healthcare. So we started CoFund Health, which is a crowdfunding site for people to afford medical bills. And of course, both being pet parents on our own, and people approaching us saying, "Hey, this is fantastic, but what about my dog? What about my cat?" It was a natural pivot for us to say, let's keep CoFund Health going, but more importantly, let's spend the time, effort, and money to get CoFundMyPet up. And it's been that was in 2018 when we first started the idea, and launched in 2019 for CoFundMyPet. And it's been it's a labor of love, and we love doing it. And the success stories feel good, and the times when perhaps someone falls short, or loses an animal hurts. And so we hurt with them. But we do it because we love our animals, and our animals are an important part of our families.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we know now this kind of it's been for a while. It's not recent, but for a while now, it's been sort of the era of the GoFundMe, the crowdsourcing generation, where certainly now we live in very hard economic times, and a lot of people do need help out there. And I know when I see fundraisers that people need help, if it's for a human being, I'm like, screw that dude. But if it's for a dog, I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, totally. I don't, it doesn't really matter to me, because you're dealing with somebody, typically a household that has human children as well, that they have medical bills. I know I have 3 brothers, and they all have children. So that's the priority, and they want to take care of their canine or their companions, whether they're canine or feline or companions of another sort, like chinchillas, because companions come in all flavors and sizes, we like to say here on Fuzzybutts and Friends. So we here are serious advocates of treating them like members of the household. They are here, certainly at the Morgan Manor. Certainly my kids or my family, more than my brothers are, certainly. So that means then that comes with the tremendous responsibility, Matt. And that means that we want to provide them with premier top shelf healthcare, right?
Right, for sure. And one of the things, and I agree with you, we recognize that, with a lot of resources out there, and we would see the various crowdfunding activities. And of course, when we started in the crowdfunding for health space, there was a lot of times we would see, suspected fraud, or in many cases, not many cases, some cases you would see, national news stories about real fraud, where people were fundraising based on fraudulent terms and raising several $100,000 in some case. And so the what we brought to the crowdfunding space through CoFund Health is an ability for when you fundraise, we, instead of getting the money sent to a checking account, to sending cash being misused elsewhere, we load the money to a debit card that only works in medical clinics. So when we decided, hey, CoFundMyPet is our next big thing here, we took that same process and applied it to the pet care. So when people raise money through our site, the money gets loaded to a debit card that only works in veterinary clinics and for for animal services. And that was very important to us, again, because we wanted to make sure that those that are giving are, that care about these animals are also confident the money is being spent on the animals.
Yeah,
So
I
that
want
was
to.
really what we brought here.
Sure. I want to talk about the market size, just exactly talk about how many pet parents we think out there that need help and so on and so forth. But we can table that for the moment and talk exactly how it works, because that's very important. We want to make sure that the pet parents, the takeaway from this episode is that they're able to get online and easily walk through. So walk us through the process when the pet parent goes in to the vet clinic for the first time, and they've never been through the process. Tell us about how it works, what qualifies as an accepted expense, how much qualifies. So just walk us through the entire process, Matt.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we're available directly to pet parents nationwide. We don't have a limited network of vet clinics we work with. We want the pet parent to have a choice where to spend their money for veterinary services. We also don't restrict the money to specific services. We don't have that level of insight. As you get your credit card bill, sometimes you'll see this was spent at a restaurant, this was spent at a grocery store. So we use a technology in the background on the credit card side of things to direct the money only to veterinary spaces. And so the way the process would work, if Luke, you needed to raise money for your animal, you would go to CoFundMyPet.com, you would create an account, and that's simply first name, last name, email address, and phone number. You create an account, then you create a fundraiser. And there's really a three-step process there when you're creating a fundraiser for your pet. Your pet's name, breed, a little bit of information. You load then the photo, tell the story, set your fundraising goal. And what you're really doing there in some way, I hate to use the word marketing, but you're really marketing what your need is, so people see it. And then once you accept, the campaign at the end, now there's the opportunity to start the sharing process. And we make it very easy to allow you to share your campaign through Facebook, Twitter, and via email on our site. Sends that information out there, and those are the best platforms for people to reach those in their community and share their pet's need and the story that they're trying to raise money for. And that's available ongoing. So again, as money's coming in from those donors, the person's providing updates on the site. There's an update place where you can add additional information. You keep updating your donors, and then you request your debit card. The money gets loaded to the debit card, and you can use it for any veterinary service at a veterinary clinic. And we've expanded a little bit. Initially we were very, very tight veterinary clinics only, and the merchant category for that. And then of course we found out that some of the nonprofits had a different merchant category. It's still animal related, so we kind of broaden the usability.
Yeah,
again,
stop right there.
Yeah.
I'm very fascinated about that aspect of your business, and I'm curious. First of all, is that IP, is that protected, or can you talk about how that works? Because we're going to be kind of dealing with a similar situation with Hudson's Hope as well. And that's so important, is that you got to make sure that the money goes to the intended purpose, because the trust factor is the trust factor with your campaign, all the people that are there, that all the donors that are contributing, that trust factor is breached, then the whole model doesn't work. So how do you to verify that the debit card is being used at the point of sale or point of transaction, that transaction is legit?
Yeah, for sure. So in broad non-technical terms, when a merchant has a credit card terminal, they identify what kind of business they are. And so that is registered in the network. And so we have our cards established to only work in those types of businesses. And so again, the what was purchased there, we don't have insight into. So if someone were to raise money for their animal and use it for grooming, well, that is pet care. And we don't want to get in the business saying, well, this is allowed, but this is not allowed. So we just really funnel it to these are clearly the locations that help for pets care.
Understood, and more importantly, that's really the province of the practitioner, right? The clinician, the GP, or the specialty veterinarian, right? That's for them to determine what's a legit expense in the care for their companion. So tell us, Matt, if you can. I'm really curious, like what is just to give you an example. I've lost 3 dogs to cancer, and Ginger's lost 7, and so or 8. I can't recall. So many.
There's a lot.
It's
I
a
think
lot.
It's
It's
7,
a
and I
lot.
count Hudson and Murphy as mine, so 9.
Yeah, and so those were very, very expensive and differing in their length. Like Malcolm, my first one was bone cancer, and he was almost 2 years was the outcome. Murphy, my second one, was nasal adenocarcinoma. We did radiation, but he didn't make it, or he barely made it no, he did not make it a year after he was diagnosed. And then my last one, Hudson, it was pretty much over very, very quickly. And so my curiosity and my question is then, Matt, is that like with Murphy, we did radiation over 30 days. It was an extensive, long campaign that I think we did formally fundraise. I was so long ago, it was so traumatic for me, I can't recall how we did it.
We did some fundraising on our own.
Yeah, on our own, not using any type, but that was in 2011, so it was a long time ago. So my question, Matt, is there a length of campaign you cut off? How's that work?
Yeah, so we we thought a lot about that. Is there a cap? Is there a time duration? And again, we wanted to be as available as possible to that pet family, and so we very intentionally do not have a time duration for exactly that reason. Some people need ongoing long-term care for their pet, and it's a continuing process. And then as far as the top end, again, we want to leave that up to the donor to believe in what the story is, and then have appropriate guardrails to make sure that money isn't being abused. So, when if you were to say I need $6,000 over the next year, that's okay. That's not, we don't want to limit you and say, well, yeah, you can only raise 3,000. If there are enough people in your community, in your network, that are reading your story, that are reading your follow-ups, that start to love your animal from afar or near, it's okay that we're okay with them giving what they're willing to give, and we know that it's being spent rather appropriately for that pet's care. So
that's wonderful. That really is wonderful, Matt, because with Murphy, it was just that when Ginger, and she can attest, is that when we first started this campaign, when we first got the diagnosis of nasal adenocarcinoma, we were at Colorado State University. I was, and Steve Withrow was sort of managing his care, and he was like, well, we're not going to do surgery, so we're going to do radiation. And so then we did, I think we did a CT scan, we did all the extensive diagnostics, and then we found out we did IMRT, which is going to be a 30-day thing. And we put it out there where we're raising money, and people were like, well, how much are you raising? And I was like, I have no idea what the total cost is going to be. And we got really criticized. Somebody came out and accused us of being me being crooked, or it was a crooked sort of thing. And I was crying all the time. And I'm like, well, I was like, call Colorado State University and verify. I have no idea. We have an idea. They give you a range essentially of the cost. But the reality was, we knew that probably one round of radiation was not going to be sufficient. So we knew that it was going to be long-term treatment. And that really is, I didn't want to kind of, we're jumping all around, but I didn't want to get in there yet, but it really is sort of my focus, and the focus certainly of the Puppy Up Foundation, is cancer care. And that's true of cancer care. We hear it on our end all the time. I don't think this is very true in the public domain, is that when you get the cancer diagnosis, that's pretty much a lifetime diagnosis. A lot of people say, I'm cancer free or my pet's cancer free, but that's not really true. And once you get that, so I love that. It's fantastic that CoFundMyPet, that you guys have designed your site and your campaign such that, once you get the diagnosis, you have no idea. And with cancer, the tab is just going to keep running in so many different ways. Matt, as well. I want to briefly just talk about one of our guests that we had on, Canine Biologics, and that company is doing some wonderful things. Are you familiar with them, Canine Biologics?
I have. I've read some of their information, and that's it's the innovation that's happening in pet care. Again, as a lifelong pet parent, I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure almost every pet parent has had to treat their dog with cancer has seriously worried about cachexia, losing weight, and diets, and getting food is just a really tough, like nonstop problem.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah, Ginger and I have been through it many, many times in many forms. And so you're always trying to get food into them. And so we've always thought about a good solution. And Canine Biologics has come up with like a kit that kind of has everything that a pet parent needs. I love it. We love it. We're going to do samples of it. But it's very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're learning, Matt, and I'm sure is what you're seeing out there, is that we're seeing all these new products and all of these wonderful new technologies and products out there to help pet parents in time of crises. But it's getting expensive, though,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah. The cost of care is going up, but the quality of care and the number of things available to a veterinarian every year are better and better, and our animals are living longer because the care is better. And sometimes that does cost a little more. And, so there are people who fault the veterinarians, the veterinarians aren't at fault. It is better care, and better care does cost more, unfortunately. But as we get better at it, the cost does come down. And so, the better we're able to help those pet parents, afford to keep their animals healthy in a reasonable time, the better off we all are.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better, Matt. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, I didn't interrupt you earlier because I didn't want you to lose your train of thought. But, when Luke was talking about how people said, he was using the money for something else, and Murphy wasn't sick. What I really like about CoFundMyPet is that you can only use it, like you said, at the veterinarian's office. And so, I see people almost every day on social media going through other platforms trying to raise money. And I constantly sending them, go to CoFundMyPet, because people will then know that it's legit, because, people have gotten burned,
Mm-hmm.
because, and I know a couple of years ago, there was somebody on a social media and her dog or cat was sick. And then about 3 months later, it seemed like it was a different animal that was sick again, and she's raising money. And that's when I was like, you know what, go to CoFundMyPet, because I'm not falling for this. Her animal could have been sick.
Yeah.
But I was reticent to donate again.
Right. And we believe most people are honest, but we want to be a proof source for honesty.
Yeah, that's so critical on all fronts. Also, on the veterinary clinic as well, because they provide such an invaluable service.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get back to the cost of care and cost of treatment. But what's interesting? I don't know if you have the metrics or the charts, the graphs or whatnot, but it would be interesting to see the cost, the increase of the cost of the actual visit, right? The actual clinic cost of the visit, and then track that versus the appreciation of the cost of diagnostic tools and therapeutics such as pharmaceuticals and so on and so forth. But I can't speak that in terms of general veterinary care, but Ginger and I could speak at length and almost and exhaustively on the cost of care in cancer. And I'm sure, as you know, Matt, it's getting very, very expensive, but it should. We are doing, we've been, I think, 20 to 25 years behind in terms of oncology, veterinary oncology, behind human oncology. I would say 20, 25 years. But we're starting to see things like immunotherapy, right? The toolbox is expanding. We have the advanced diagnostics. We have CT scans. We have MRIs now. And so we are legit being able to understand the complexity of cancer in our companion animals, but that comes at a tremendous cost. So our foundation, we've always been helping create these great tools, but the downside or the dark side of that is, well, now we got to pay for it, and so that's why we said we have to pay for these things, or else it doesn't make sense because we know our foundation knows, because we've funded clinical trials. Everyone says, well, why doesn't big pharma come in and just like fund giant trials? And my background, I'm not sure about yours. I want to know about yours. You have a very interesting background, but I have a BBA in finance and accounting, and so I'm a business guy, right? And so I understand the economics of the market of pharmaceuticals and the companion animals, right? It's just not even close. It's a rounding error. Like cancer drugs is a rounding error to human drugs. It's just a tremendous difference. So there's not that economic or financial incentive that drug companies have. So the problem that I see, Matt, and I'm sure you see this as well, if we continue to do such a great job of bringing tools over to the veterinary side from human medicine side, and we're not paying for them, then big pharma is going to say, oh, well, I guess we see now we made a mistake, and so you guys don't get the cool tools anymore, right? Do you foresee that problem? Correct? How do you see that?
Yeah, potentially. So, talk about background. So my background, kind of before I went in this entrepreneurial journey, I worked, so I was an Army officer for 9 years. That was great. Left the Army and went to work for a startup that helped people afford branded medications. Spent about 11 years in that business. And so we worked with a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturers. They were our customers. Things from pills and capsules to gels, all the way up to $1 million a year therapies for certain cancers. And so I got to see a lot of the inner workings of the things that pharma was trying to solve for people healthcare. And you would always see early in the process, some therapies were stupid expensive because it was touching a very niche thing. But what we always saw over time was the cost of the medications did come down from where they started. And and I think that same thing's going to carry over as your mission of finding that confluence between people cancer and animal cancer. Those costs will continue to come down as well. So they're always going to be really high to begin with. The more they're used, the more they're applied, the more things that are learned, those costs will continue to drop over time, and that's good. Again, I've been fortunate. My dogs that I have lost have all had 15 plus year lifespans. But at the same time, sometimes in those last couple of years, some things get expensive, and always balancing the cost of care to keep them going until they're ready to go.
Savor the young years. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I have 3 seniors. Savor the young years.
But you're absolutely right, though, Matt, is that we have this wonderful invisible economic hand here in this country, this market hand, and you're right, is that the greater the demand for products, it equates to a greater supply, and over time that will drop the price of goods. And so the great thing about that reality, because it's an economic law, it's immutable, it doesn't change, you can't manipulate it. It's just like you can't change inflation, all the ways they're trying to manipulate what's going on and what's going on right now. I know it doesn't work, and that's not working right now. So it's just a reality, but that incentivizes us, you and your business at CoFundMyPet, and certainly us at Hudson's Hope Fund, and also in all of the other, there's the care credit, there are insurers. It's incumbent then upon us as market participants to get more liquidity into the marketplace, right? Because if we are able to provide more liquidity to the marketplace for pet parents, then pet parents can pay for, they can then demand more goods from medical goods, devices, therapeutics, and diagnostics, and that will drop the price over time. So the way that we've always seen it on the foundation side is that we've had a supply and demand problem, right? And so as well as we're increasing supply of novel technologies, novel therapeutics, as long as we're increasing the supply of that, then we also have to, on the other side of that equation, increase demand. And so that's why I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And it's exciting because it's entirely different than what Care Credit does, because I think they're great, and I don't know how much I owe them, but it's a lot.
Right.
But you're able to provide a solution that's a debt-free solution for families.
Right. It's very much a debt-free. It's a gifting solution. And again, it allows those people who care about your pets outside of your immediate family to participate in helping them get healthy. I've had personal family members who have used our site because they didn't want to just say, hey, can everybody pitch in $50 to help my dog get better. They wanted to show that they're honestly using the money that they're trying to help, that they can't afford on their own, to raise money for their pet's care. And that's good. Again, we want to be that proof source that allows everyone else to participate, that cares about your animal, may not care about them exactly as much as you do, but they still care. How many people do you know love to pet your dog, or they see you coming down the street on your walk and they get a big smile. Those people are willing to help. But if they don't have an avenue where they know for sure that they can help, and they're definitely helping your animal, they may not be able to help. And so we want to be that trusted friend of the pet parent, and that intermediary between those who want to help and that pet.
Yeah, going back just briefly to the economy, I don't want to get into a belabored discussion about that and the complexities, but we are going through a really tough time. I just fueled up today, and it was $80 to do 20 gallons of the Hudson mobile that I drive right now, and I'm just thinking, boy, that's like one day of a lot of people's wages. And so we are in inflationary times, so people are getting hit harder out there. So are you seeing an increase in business right now, Matt, or are you seeing more pet parents in need right now?
Yeah, we are. It's funny. I say funny. Funny is definitely not the right word. We're seeing more people needing help, and perhaps fewer dollars are coming in the immediate period, which we want to we're trying to be sensitive and help people where we can. So we try to find more avenues to share and provide more proof of legitimacy, so those pet parents who are raising through our site have more content to share with people, so they can say, oh, this CoFundMyPet really is a thing. So we are seeing more people raising. We're unfortunately over the last 4-ish months, look at some stats over here, last 4-ish months, a little bit of decline in the dollars per campaign coming in, which is a little bit attributed to more campaigns and this roughly the same amount of money coming through them, and a little bit of money kind of dropping off because people are stretched a little thinner now. But the good news is we are still seeing people care. Average donation size is down a little bit, but again, sometimes $5, $10 from a lot of people can make a huge difference for a pet parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Ginger and I both know that so well. But I would think that your that CoFundMyPet and other similar type things are a good economic indicator. If gifting and giving is down, that certainly is a really good economic indicator and a sign of the times. Because I know nonprofits are seeing that out there as well. It's just tough, and now is the time for us to work together, multiple organizations. I know we're very early on in the Hudson's Hope Fund, so we just announced it recently. But I certainly would like to partner. If you guys do strategic partnerships, I would like to talk to you about that, because I think we're doing up to $7,500 grants for specifically for cancer treatment and diagnostics. And so, but that, as you know, that doesn't. I mean, my first one was well, Murphy was over 25,000. I mean, we know that doesn't even come close. And so we're going to need to partner with organizations such as yours. And even still, our first round is ambitious. We think it's $100,000 for Hudson's Hope, but that only treats at 7,500. That's our cap. That only treats 12 to 15 puppy dogs, right? And
Right.
so it's great. So that's round one. So if we're successful in raising $100,000 for round one, and we're able to get as many of that $100,000 to the actual intended purpose, and we're also going to track the treatment and the care and the transparency of everything to be legit, like what you're doing. But if we can do that, Matt, then we'll go out and we'll raise a round two, right? Maybe 150,000, 100 or 200,000. But yet and still, that's 20 dogs, right? So that's a lot of capital at 75. So we are certainly going to need a network, a syndicate. Really, is how a funding syndicate is kind of how I see it. So I hope you guys do partnerships.
Yeah, we do. We don't have any active currently. A lot of our partnerships thus far have just been, shared awareness, partnerships. Hey, this is me. Here's what we do. Someone pops up and says, "Hey, I get this going on. I've sent some people Ginger's way. She sent some people our way." We've got a couple other organizations that help with vet bills and different things. We haven't done anything formally as far as partnerships. Just sometimes, oftentimes it's like, well, can't quite figure out the logistics, but we're always open to, again, people that care about animals. And if we're not the right fit, we're still going to be a friend of the business and figure out how to still get people hooked up with you. So always open to that.
Yeah, I don't know how the mechanics of things like that work in modern technology. That's always that's a Ginger thing. I always kick that over.
Thank you. Because I'm so good with technology.
Yeah, well, but there should be, though, in all seriousness, and we can certainly talk offline. This is certainly not the platform to discuss in detail how something would work. But I've certainly been a critic of other nonprofit organizations in the canine cancer realm for not syndicating deals, for not saying, hey, we want to do a clinical trial, but this clinical trial is going to cost $500,000, and our foundation only has 150 or something. So will you go in and create the syndicate? But they're all, for all the reasons that and that we know, the reality is it's very difficult to structure those. But it is something to think about in the future, and I like to think about the future, because if we're not trying to be more efficient, right? If we're not trying to increase the whole liquidity pool and actually get more pet parents choosing treatment and driving down costs, then what really are we doing? What really is our business? Is my question. So I don't want to go back to, because I'm fascinated with this, Matt, and you know this business. You've been doing it for a while. I'm fascinated about how big is the need. So I tried to think about it. First of all, how many vet bills? What's the total vet bills a year here currently in the U.S.? Do we know?
Again, that's the data there is just not clear. Because some of us just there. The overall vet market is a $30 billion market from a total dollar standpoint. How does that get cut up per visit. I don't have a whole lot of clarity. I know how
Oh
much.
no, that's fine. I didn't mean to dump that on you. I guess it's a big number was what I was getting at.
Huge.
I'm horrible with numbers myself. I was asking you. I was hoping you did that research. So, but we know but it is I think 30 billion for the total vet industry, and the veterinary services is a big piece of that, right?
Right, most of it.
Yeah, most of it. So it's a big number. But do we know?
And I contribute a lot to that
Yeah,
number.
I do too. And we should, as we should. Our companions should get Marquis as good of treatment and care as people get. That's something we reinforce here at Fuzzybutts and Friends, is that our companions are people. As much of a pain as people can be too from time to time, but they are people. But
They're the best people.
They are, and that is a really important thing too, because we joke about that, but if you think about it, our companions can't choose medical treatment, right? They can't choose their care. We're their keepers, and 100%. And so that's a responsibility that I don't think that's really talked enough about in our society. And more importantly, Ginger could speak about this. I don't think that new pet parents prepare enough about the quality of care that they're entering into. Right,
No, I don't. I remember when I got my first big dog, because I had small dogs. I lived in an apartment. And I remember this coworker of mine saying, "Can you afford another dog?" And I was like, what is she talking? I was offended, because I'm like, well, I wouldn't have gotten one if I couldn't afford him. Well, I didn't realize that just the heartworm treatment was like 3 times more for an 80-pound dog than it was for the 15-pound dog. And then, like a couple years into it, I was like, maybe I should have asked questions.
Yeah, but I see it in the Pyrenees world is really more my world, is that, and we certainly see it down here in the South, is you have farmers that have Pyrenees to protect their livestock, and they just try to make a couple of bucks, and they decide to start breeding them, and they sell them to whoever they can, and it's typically like a new married young couple or something like that, and they don't know what they're getting into, and so they have to export. We're like the South is like the biggest exporter of large breed, like farming dogs, like Pyrenees. But it is important for pet parents, and I don't know. We certainly haven't done enough, Ginger, and this is kind of an important note, is we need to start talking more and more here about what is the average cost of care. Do you know that? Do you have any idea, Matt, what we're looking at, the just sheer economics of caring for pets?
Yeah, for sure. So, we've got some stats. We've done some research. For a small dog, you're averaging $750 a year, and for a larger dog, you're closer, twice that, $1,400, $1,500 a year, for just the regular care maintenance of an animal. That's everything from toys and food to replacing doing some ACL repair. On that, just average across the lifespan of the dog. That's a pretty good commitment, as Ginger said. You're like, what do you mean I can't afford? I got the dog; it was free. But all those things come with it. Those add up over the span of 10, 12, 15, sometimes longer years.
Oh, it sure does.
And just like a human, you hope there's an inverse curve with those care costs, right? You hope they're relatively low when they're young. And of course, they're going to get higher and higher when they get older, because our companions are living a lot longer due to the miracle of medical science, for sure. But I know that the cost can sometimes be staggering, and the insurance companies, and we haven't had someone from the insurance business yet in here, and I certainly want to talk to one of the C-level type people from that, because they're doing a better job. I mean, I know when my first dog Malcolm was diagnosed in cancer was 2004. I just was curious to see, and their coverage would have been negligible. I mean, negligible compared to the total cost of care, which it was like 15 grand or something. So now it's a much better. I think 7,500 is the current policy I have on mine. So we're getting better, but even still, as you know, there is that big gap. There's a need gap.
And my policy is better than yours.
How does What do I have like? Is there like is there like a clause? I can't think of it. A rider in there. What's the insurance clause in there against Fuzzybutts? Do they know that I have? Do they know that I'm the father to the infamous Fuzzybutts and that somehow I'm getting penalized by the insurance? There's a Fuzzybutt
A
clause
different
in my
insurance
insurance.
company.
My insurance policy somewhere. I've got to look into that. That's hilarious. But there is obviously the huge need, and that's where you guys come into. But what I was trying to get at, and this may be an impossible statistic, but I like to kind of look at problems analytically. I'm a data guy. Is that, do we have any idea what the gap is? And we know how much we're spending. We just know what the market could be like if we had more funds, right? The difference in the market, could it be double the size? Do we have any idea what that market could be like?
I sure don't. That'd be a good number to know. What anecdotally, as we kind of theoretically, maybe say anecdotally, we see it as, people. We talked earlier about, the cost of care is coming down as it's going up and coming down simultaneously. And more people are treating their animals like family members. And so, the overall market for veterinary services will continue to climb. And so having avenues, whether it's insurance, whether it's sites like ours, all the other ways to help afford that, I think will be an important ecosystem to make sure that more and more animals are treated like family members. It's funny.
Yeah. You're hitting the nail on the head right there. You're exactly right. Is that the investment that people are making in the care of their companions is increasing vastly more than the care of humans. And so I think I saw a number was like 16%. So the market size of total veterinary care is increasing 16% a year on average. And so that we know that's increasing a lot more, even adjusted for inflation, more than what our increase in expenditure is on human health care. So that gap is decreasing. So we're succeeding. So now that I'm interested. I'm a numbers guy. I couldn't find it out there. I don't think it exists. Again, I wasn't trying to. Sometimes I drop bombs. I wasn't trying to surprise you, man. I'm
What's
sorry.
the number here? Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
It's funny though. I find myself, I'm very deliberate about, making sure my animals are on their schedule as far as, everything from when, eat at the right times and take their walks at the right times to, their routine veterinary care. I do that better for my dogs than I do for myself. 100% and better at making sure they're getting the care they need, because you hit it earlier. They whether they know it or not, they're entrusting their quality of life with us, and so I make sure that they get the best quality of life they can.
Absolutely.
Much better at taking care of my pets than I am myself.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way about children and also geriatric elderly people as well that have less of an ability to be able to care for themselves. That's the true measure, I think, an indicator of the humanity of a society, I believe, is the extent to which we care for them. And so one of the themes, Matt, the theme of Fuzzybutts and Friends, we don't just talk about cancer, we don't just talk about specific things, I think is the value of our companions in society. And so we try to, all of our guests, we try to talk about that in so many different ways. And that's precisely what we're talking about, because what I truly believe, and we're seeing, we really are, is that dogs are a model for us, not just scientifically, they're a model for us from a humane standpoint. And I think the greater that we value our companions, not just dogs, the greater we value all of our companions in society, the more humane we are. So you're doing a wonderful job of that and being able to prolong the life of a companion. That is the most ultimate gift that you can give, that one could give the Fuzzybutts, because I'm sure, like Ginger and I'm sure you've had to say goodbye to a couple of your mates, right?
I have. If you look at our website, the two dogs at the top on our main CoFundMyPet.com, that's Jenna and Katie. Those are my two border collies, similar to Ginger's story. I was a young Army officer. We lived in upstate New York, and I wanted a border collie. So we found a local farm. We had a border collie. I had no idea what I was getting into with a border collie. I knew they were great, smart dogs. They as anybody who's been around a border collie, number one, their energy needs are pretty high, and their intelligence is almost scary. So Katie taught us how to be pet parents. Doing all the things you do to take them for walks, care for them, learn what words not to say because they start learning words, and then once they start spelling, then they learn to understand spelling. So she taught us, and then our second border collie, Jenna, is a smaller puppy in the picture, and we lost her right before COVID. Both of them at the ripe age of 15 once they both were gone. But Jenna, she had vestibular disease in June of 2019, so a few months before I met Ginger at an event. And so we went through from that June until we ultimately had to let her go in the following March. She went through vestibular, and then from there just all the old dog ailments that happen kind of all at once. And so stiffness and inability to walk and some things. And so we monitored her really closely, her quality of life. And it wasn't the quality of life of a border collie, but the whole time. But she was able to move, able to get around. You could see energy and willingness to live and want to live. We were there with her. And so, but ultimately when it was time to let her go, it was beyond sad. And it took us, almost 2 years to, although we had the little dogs still, our 3 little Chihuahuas, to get back in the saddle for a bigger dog was hard. And, saying goodbye too soon is hard. And, for us as founders of CoFundMyPet, and oftentimes talking about, how to, being a tool for people not to have to say goodbye too early. It gave us another opportunity to practice empathy and sympathy for the pet parents we were helping. I'm very fortunate throughout my career to been able to do things that allow me to afford to care for my pets that I need and afford to spend the money it took to build CoFund Health and CoFundMyPet. But just still going through the process that a process that money can't solve, which is watching your pet decline to a point, and then when the day is the day, it is what it is. And so we have had to say goodbye, and we always know that there's 4 more in the house right now, that at some point that's going to happen again too. So
well, Ginger, Ginger, it's I don't want to go too far. I've got one right now that's just about to be 11, and I just lost one. So I try not to cry at the podcast.
I'm trying not to. I got a little choked a couple of times.
I saw that. I wasn't gonna let you start crying.
I remember.
I'm gonna have to do the League of Their Own. Tom Hanks. There's no crying on Fuzzybutts and Friends. No crying. It's a fun show, but Matt. But that's the power of what this message is. The power of this episode right here is encapsulated right here in this moment, my friend, and that is that Ginger and I and you seem to all be fortunate in the sense that we've been able to say goodbye to our mates on our own terms, and finances have not factored into it. But the 2/3 of pet parents, finances does play a part in that decision, is staggering, and it's unacceptable. 2/3. Let me just repeat this for the audience. 2/3 of the deaths of our Fuzzybutts, of our companions, and for many of us, most of us, I hope, there are kids, there are families. So 2/3 of those deaths are unnecessarily or untimely because of money, dollars. We live in the most advanced society in this world, and we have access to tons of capital. So we can solve this problem. Don't you think, Matt? It is or at least we can do a damn better job. Don't you think?
I think so too. And at the end of the day, we all love our animals and we're willing to spend what we can, but everyone has a threshold. And so we build ourselves to be a tool to extend someone's threshold and be that safety net that, again, allows other people who care about the animal to participate and be part of that solution on the cash flow side of things.
Yeah, you guys are a big part of that solution, Matt, and a powerful part of the solution, and I thank you for that. Couldn't have ended this episode in a better way. Is there any final words that you want to give to pet parents out there, and then also tell pet parents how they can find you and where to go?
Yeah, for sure. So, again, I guess as far as final words, don't be afraid to ask for help. Again, we're here to allow you to ask for help in a dignified way, to allow other people to care. And so, and you'd be surprised how many people reach out and they're like, I'm not sure I want to ask others for help or whatever. And then they decide to go ahead and do it. And how many people rally around their need, their pets, again, as little as $5, some cases, sometimes hundreds of dollars, from family members and friends and anonymous donors in the community, that just pop on, choose to make their donation anonymous, and there you have it. And so, we've had $500 anonymous donors to just pop it, and we know who they are in our database, but the recipient receives it as an anonymous donation. So don't be afraid to ask.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Matt. I really am, because that's so powerful and important, because I am the person that you're speaking to. After going through that with Murphy, that learned me. I'm not asking for anybody I'm just not asking for help for cancer for my kids ever again. To the extent that I'm able to, that might not always be the case. But to the extent that I can, because there were some people that were very unkind. And that was, and that now it just, you're like, okay, I'm not going to ask for help anymore. And that's not a good thing, because help is out there, and it's as easy as signing up for your website, which I'm assuming is a very easy process, right?
Right. Signing up for a campaign takes, the basics take 2 minutes. Really, the effort is writing the story and telling what your need is, talking about your pet, personalize your pet and your story. And that's really the work. So 5-ish minutes, to put yourself out there, help people connect with your pet, and then just share it on your social media, share periodically. We found the best strategies are people who share updates fairly regularly, and keep people updated on what's going on. We had some donations. Here's the care we got. Here's what we did with that. This is the next step. Continue to update your donors. And so it's very easy to start. It's very easy to continue. They can find more about us at CoFundMyPet.com, which is our site. We've got all the typical social media with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And we're not as good as we would like to be sharing more and more stuff out there, but we make ourselves available and want to be that resource, for, again, to prevent the economic euthanasia from being a barrier for someone, for the care of their pet.
Yeah. So basically, help is half an hour away, and that's just telling the story of your companion. And telling the story, it really is, because that's what it's about. And once you're able to tell the story, people connect with that. And as Ginger will attest to, she's all about nickels and dimes, and those add up. And
They do. The $5 adds up.
And it also does another thing. It also engenders a greater sense of community as well. And
Yes.
that pet parents is that, because I know with cancer, I know that my first diagnosis with Malcolm in Boston, I felt totally alone, because I knew my parents weren't going to help me out financially, because they're like, well, it's just a dog, son. So they're Texans, God bless them, and they're great, but that was their thing. And so it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And so that pet parents have a resource out there, Matt, like CoFundMyPet should make everyone feel a lot better. So Matt, thank you for being a part of the show. But before we go, every week, every episode now, we like to have Ginger Morgan, my co-host, Dr. Gonger Morgan, give the Puppy Up Foundation's weekly cancer. I had to bring the house up. I had to elevate the mood up a little bit. So Ginger is here to provide the Puppy Up Foundation cancer tip or fact of the week. Ginger, take it away.
Thanks, Luke. So I'm going to repeat one, because I got a call actually this morning from my niece saying that they had taken her dog in a few days ago to have some lumps and bumps removed. Well, one of the lumps came back benign. The other one came back as a mast cell tumor. She's gotten the lab results back and it's a low grade. So, they removed it and she's done. But luckily she listened. They found the lump and a bump and they took their dog to the vet. So when you find lumps and bumps on your dogs, don't assume that it's just going to be okay. You can't tell, and the vet can't tell unless they do a fine needle aspirate or you have it removed. Check out the lumps and bumps. Check your dogs every month for lumps and bumps.
So this really was about the advice that you gave.
The Puppy Up Foundation gave. We all give the same advice.
So this episode really was about you. This little segment was really about you. No, I'm teasing. It's an ongoing. It's an ongoing joke that Ginger and I have at the Puppy Up Foundation, because I don't know if you know my history, but I backpacked 4,000 miles because I've lost two dogs to cancer. And yet Ginger always gets the emails because she helped us get from the beginning of our walks to the end. Is that she still gets emails and says, "Oh my God, Ginger, you're such a saint. You're so wonderful that they survived." I'm like, I did the walking. What are you talking about? I was out there doing the work. But
I made sure you were fed, right? And the dogs were fed. That's the most important. We're going back to the dog.
As the director of the Puppy Up Foundation, it is certainly always about Ginger. So thank you, Ginger, for the tip. It certainly is important. And it really is, in all seriousness, the more that we can get those tips out there, lumps and bumps, because now we know with our guest here today, the lump and bump check, that's really just a vet visit. They have to just take a syringe and aspirate it, and they're going to be able to tell whether it looks weird and requires further diagnostics or it doesn't. And you can go home and be, fairly safe and sound that it's not going to present a problem. That's just a vet visit. In some places, that's $150. And now that we know that CoFundMyPet is a resource, you really have no reason not to go out and have a lump or bump checked, because the difference could be something like soft tissue sarcoma, which Ginger's Pete dog she passed from. That went from a very small lump or bump to a giant sized lump or bump in a matter of months. Ginger, right? It was actually ensnared the
July 7th. July 7th, it was about the size of a quarter, and he died on August 3rd. It was about the size of a grapefruit.
Wow.
So yes, lumps and bumps, folks. All right. Well, that concludes this episode of Fuzzybutts and Friends. I'd like to thank our guest, Matt, the founder of CoFundMyPet. Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, Matt, truly are, with the wonderful work you guys are doing there at CoFundMyPet. You truly are a friend to the Fuzzybutts, and we would like to stay in touch. And in all seriousness, we would love to follow up with you and discuss ways that you can work with Hudson's Hope Fund and put together some type of partnership on any level where we can at least get the word out there so we can get that number down. 2/3 of all euthanasias come down to dollars and cents, folks. It's just a damn shame. Anyway, on that note, thank you for tuning in this episode. Puppy up. Talk soon.